Hi, hello and welcome back. Welcome back to another Onkruid video. Book review, should you read, whatever you want to call it. This book right here. Professor Chandra follows his bliss. Another one of those books I bought in Switzerland for only €2, so really a cheap deal, and I didn't regret it at all. I got it from the same store where I got the Tom Clancy book, where I got the Burned Alive book, which I will be talking about in the future. And as I've said multiple times before, therefore I am a bit biased, because I bought it in such a beautiful environment on such a beautiful week in my life, so maybe that elevated my enjoyment in the book a little bit. Either way though, should you read it? A very simple question I pose in each of these videos with, most of the time, a convoluted, difficult to understand answer. This time, simple, straight to the point. Yeah, yes, you should read it. Easy as that, you know, life doesn't have to be complicated. It's a good book, it's a good read. It's a must read? No, not a must read, but it's a should read. We are following the life of economy professor P.R. Chandrasekhar. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that one more time, so for now I'm just going to revert back to Chandra, what a lot of people call him. We look at him when he is already 68, maybe 69 years of age, and he is the classic image, the splitting image, the classic example of an academy professor in his ivory tower. It's all about academics, it's about publications, it's about research, it's about thinking, it's about economy, it's about philosophy, it's about lecturing, it's about getting respect from the children, and if they don't respect them, oh, they're the worst kids to ever live. He focused his entire life on his work in the economy sector, and that's what he believed would make him happy, just hard work. And he is chasing the famous Nobel Prize. Now, however, since nobody actually cares about economy unless it's the GE prices in old school RuneScape, he doesn't get it. One of his opponents, his colleagues / opponents, snatched it from him at the last second. And that was already a bit of a hiccup in his life. He fell into like a pit, but he couldn't quite grasp the rocks of the side of the well to get out of the pit again, you know? And it took a cyclist hitting him dead on and putting him in the hospital to actually realize, alright, you know what? Things have to change. It has got to be different around here. Interestingly and quite beautifully symbolically, he got hit by the cyclist when he was crossing the street to say sorry to a student he offended. So already there was kind of this change of heart. He was already thinking about doing things differently, and then life is just like, well, yeah, cool, but bam! Do it more quickly, do it better. This is your last chance. It is the doctor in his hospital that is treating him for his silent heart attack. That doctor tells him to follow his bliss. Apparently it's a Californian way of saying think about what really makes you happy in life. Think about what you want to do with those last couple of years you still have. Follow your passion, your talents, your interests. Don't just follow the path that has already been laid out for you, but carve a new one. And that's exactly what Professor Chandra then sets out to do once he is released from the hospital. We follow his journey to self-enrichment, to self-actualization, as Carl Rogers would call it. Carl Rogers is the founding father of all the humanistic client-centered therapies. He discovers he should have spent more time invested in his family instead of his work, and that's exactly what he sets out to do now. To kind of make up for the past by right now, here and now, trying to get back together with his family, trying to make amends, try to build up more strong relationships. Sure, his wife left him for a child psychiatrist, that's all cool and stuff, but that shouldn't mean that he has to disregard his children, and that's exactly what he realizes. Fucking Steve, piece of trash, stole his wife from him. And in this humoristic page turner, he kind of sets himself on a quest. Chandra does, not Steve. He sets himself on a quest to travel around the world and kind of get his family back together, because his family is scattered around the world. He has a son and 2 daughters. One daughter is living in California, one daughter is out of contact with Chandra, so he doesn't even know where she is, and his son is living in Hong Kong. I feel like the best description of the story in this book is a coming of age story for a person that is already of age. It's a stunning representation of how you're never too old to learn. That's true in an academic sense, in a sense of the classical definition of learning, but also in a more human sense of learning. Learning what is important, learning how to be a good father, learning how to be a good husband, learning how to be good for yourself. It's something you're never too old for, and something you're never too young for either, in my opinion. Chandra discovers his passions for mindfulness, for yoga, for spirituality. Strangely enough, he even finds the benefits of talking about his feelings and listening to himself on that front, and also communicating his needs towards others, something he previously found completely ridiculous. Now, who could have thought that would be helpful in life, right? Not me, not the clinical psychologist here in front of you, talking about your feelings. What's that trash? What did I really like about the book? Almost all of it is the easiest answer, but I want to structure it a bit more, give some concrete examples. I think the book has an intriguing portrayal of family dynamics and attachment. It's a brutally honest portrayal of how those family members can sometimes also be brutally honest with you, really destroy you as a person and despise you for what you have become and try to make them become as well. There's also a lot of attention in the book for the effect that a father and his attitudes can have on the children. Not only Chandra on his children, but his father on himself as well. There has been this generation-long battle of getting the children to go to school, to pursue higher education, to become intellectuals. And not everybody is always pleased with that. Some people have other pursuits in life. These kids clearly don't know how fun it is to go to a quiz and know the answer as the only person on your table. That's only something intellectuals can do, you know? Even at the age of 70, where you would expect someone to really have experienced life to the fullest almost, have a whole bunch of knowledge built up of what life is about, you can still experience difficulties and struggle with getting through to your kids and being able to feel empathic towards what they are experiencing, what they are going through. Beautifully illustrated in the relation between his younger daughter Jasmine and himself. A very turbulent one with ups and downs. The book is humorous. It's quite funny sometimes, but I wouldn't call it a comedy book all in all. Most of the humor is formulated in the forms of Professor Chandra's dry thoughts, really dry humor. He sometimes thinks the exact opposite of what he actually says. And that is funny. You can sense his irritation and you can kind of empathize with it sometimes. He externalizes a thought, but internally he's thinking the exact opposite. It's kind of like a woman telling you she's fine. Ooh, shit like that might get me in trouble. It's humoristic. It's satire, don't get mad at me. The rebellious nature of his children and the way they act accordingly to that is also pretty funny at sometimes, but at the same time it's quite dark, it's uneasy, it's unnerving. You feel sorry for Chandra. He's trying his best, but his kids just keep punching him in the face and then kicking him while he's down. The hurt it instills in Chandra really makes you feel sorry for him. It's an unstable balance while reading the book between enjoying the humorous little microcosmos, the little small confrontations in the here and now between two players in the story, but then on a macro level the more worrying themes of like a family falling apart, a divorce having effects on children, drug addiction, things like that. But I think that is a pro in and of itself, that balance between those two elements. I think it adds a nice little layer to the book. Now there are a lot of stories where the protagonist experiences like an epiphany, right? Like I have to completely change my life, really turn everything upside down, do everything differently, and most of the time it is then shown that call them sweaty fingers, that they immediately do it and they are just a different person. This book is different and I really appreciated that. They show way more of a realistic, gradual process of behavioral change. Even in the last couple of pages of the title, when he has gone through his entire journey, he still makes mistakes. He still tries to push his daughter towards a higher education, even though he knows she will not be interested in it. He knows it's gonna get him into trouble if he says it out loud, and he still just does it. It's stronger than himself sometimes, and I think that is a beautiful illustration of how hard it can be to change yourself as a person. Your personality and how you see the world, how you act upon it, is so deeply rooted in all your actions and in your previous life. And shaking that off from you is a difficult assignment. It's possible, don't get me wrong, but it's difficult. And it needs time. And I also find it a pro how this sometimes make you dislike the protagonist. You get irritated with him. You slap your face like, how can you think this is a good response to what that other person just told you? But it's life. You make mistakes in processes like this. This is exactly how I would imagine a real life transformation in such an old, grumpy economist. A curmudgeon, if you will. That's the word of today, by the way, curmudgeon. You're very welcome, brought to you by Onkruid dictionaries. Curmudgeon, a bad-tempered person, most of the time an old person. That'll be $6.99 for the lesson, please. And as I talked about, one of the processes he also goes through is recognizing his emotions for what they are, for telling you something about your motivational state, about the behaviors you want to partake in, about what you want to do, instead of just putting them in the back of his mind, locking them away behind a no time for that door. He listens to them, he listens to himself in that manner. He's not a purely rational person, no, he also has feelings and he recognizes this, and that's so strong. The first illustration of this that comes to mind, and the one that really stuck with me because I found it so powerful, is when he punches Steve in the face and he says that it feels like he is finally honest with himself. Now, I don't think aggression is ever the answer, but he does have that adaptive anger, right? His wife was taking away from him and he is angry, and that's normal and that's healthy and that's fine. And he shouldn't put that away. He shouldn't lock that behind the door. No, you have to find a healthy manner to act out that anger or to replace it with another emotion that has the same function. And then the final pro I enjoyed is the pacing of the book. And this was greatly emphasized or greatly instated because of all the location changes we experience. He travels from a university through California to Hong Kong to a monastery in the mountains to a spiritual university campus. He's just all around the place, and I enjoy that. The scenes and events of this book are really ever changing. If the story would just take place in one single location, the story would feel very drawn out and it would feel prolonged for the sake of being longer. But now it provides a nice change of pace each and every time, and it keeps you interested. It keeps the title dynamic, flowing. He is on a journey in himself, and in the meantime he is also on a journey in the world. It ties into each other beautifully. And then the less beautiful part, the cons, what I disliked about the book. Some of these things, especially the first two and the third one, were things that came to mind when I was thinking about the script for this video, but it was not that easy to find a lot of substantial cons with it. In all, I found it a really enjoyable read. Still though, the lackluster world building, you can't miss it, especially if you're a fan of fantasy books. The author of this one, Rajeev Balasubramanyam, butchered that pronunciation, but it are the correct letters, can definitely learn something from people like Tolkien, people like Paolini, that take pages upon pages to describe their world. Now, that's a bit over the top because an approach like that would definitely not fit a story like this one, but you catch my drift, right? It could have just been a bit expanded upon. He's in Hong Kong, that's great. He's in a monastery, that's great. We get some descriptions of like a building there or a building here, but what is he experiencing? What is around him? Does he hear birds? Are there other sounds? Just a bit more on that front would have personally appealed more to my fancy. Now for the second con, when it comes to like the economy discussions and all the terms there that are difficult for someone like me who knows jack shit about economy to understand, all those things are glossed over quickly. There's not much attention for them at all, and that is enjoyable for a reader, and I think it's also nicely symbolic for Chandra's new approach to life, where things like this don't matter to him anymore. There is even a scene in the book where he has a discussion with someone from his university where he normally would really enjoy discussing with that person about what's going on in China's economy and how that relates to what's happening in the United States and how India is doing and all of that. And now he's just like, I don't care about economy, I want to talk about other things, I want to get out of here. And not having interest in economy terms, of course, mimics real life, because everybody knows by now that it's not important what dividends mean or what interest rates are all about. All you need to know is buy low, sell high. Diamond hands, we're going to the moon. But that's where the con comes in, right? This is handled beautifully when it comes to economy talk, but for political talk, it's clear that the author didn't want to steer clear from that. He wants this book to have a political undertone, to have an expression about liberals versus Democrats in America. And as a European, that's not really something that interests me. And additionally, politics in general is not really something that interests me. And then additionally, finally, it also didn't quite fit what I was looking for in the book. I was looking for a light read, someone discovering himself and what it means to be himself, even though he's old already. And then he starts rambling on about, oh, Republicans this, Democrats that, politicians do this and blah, blah, blah. It's not an undertone anymore. It's a bit too emphasized. It's a bit too thickly on top of everything. You can clearly see that the author wanted to have some political themes in his book. And that's not what I was looking for when looking for this read. I mean, look at the cover. There's happy clouds on there. There's a sun. I don't want to hear about Democrats versus Republicans. I want to hear about the sun and the clouds. And that ties into the third con as well. It's not so funny for a funny book, right? As I talked about, the micro interactions are very funny, but the overarching themes are actually hard hitting. They can really twist your heart, you know? He's lost everything. He lost his family, he lost his daughter, he's losing his other daughter, his son is also not really interested in him anymore. He is lonely, he is isolated, he's becoming old, and he doesn't know what to do with his life anymore. The one woman where he does then find an interest in is already taken, so that's also impossible. You feel sorry for him, and the book elicits, I would say, equally as much sadness most of the time as it elicits a laugh or a smirk or a while reading. Fourth con, story gets sidetracked a bit often. I thought this would really be a book about one individual and his journey throughout life, but we get all of these side snippets of, oh, and the daughter does this, and the son does this, and I get why it has to be there, why it ties into his story a bit, but I think that there could have been a bit more of a focus on really the individual psychology of this one person we are supposed to be following. Although, if you would not be focusing on side characters, we would have of course missed things that Steve said, like for example, hating your psychiatrist being a good thing because it means that you can act out the anger that would normally be pent up inside of you, which is just a crazy statement. The fact that you can act out the anger in the therapy sessions is of course great, that's amazing, that's what they are for, but it shouldn't necessarily be towards the psychiatrist, in my opinion. Or Jasmine stating that she doesn't need therapy, but that she just goes to make other people around her happy. I think those are very powerful things that are added to the book because we look at the side characters so often. But yeah, I wanted to know what Chandra thought of all of this. I wanted to be inside his head. I just wanted to follow our grumpy old bloke around, you know, in his discovery that there are more things in life than lying in bed with a book and a glass of alcohol. And the final con, Balasubramanyam. How the hell do you expect anyone to remember that name, my bro? I literally had to spend a couple of days trying to imprint it in my mind, and I remembered it by the word Bal, then Asubra, then Manyam. Only Bal means something, but for some reason that just clicked in my head, and now I can be like, oh yeah, Professor Chandra Follows His Bliss, that's a great book. I know the writer, his name is Rajeev Balasubramanyam, and that's impressive, isn't it? Come on, Balasubramanyam, Balasubramanyam, Balasubramanyam. It's not an actual con, because that would also be a bit racist. I just needed something to fill up the list a bit to make the slides more appealing. I mean, you have a great name, my man, a great name. The conclusion is that it's just a great book. As I said, biased because I bought it in Switzerland, also biased because I have an illegal copy. Don't tell anybody, please. It was just a nice read. Also, it functioned as a profound reminder for someone like me that is just graduated that academic pursuits are not everything. Maybe he only got that life lesson at his 17th birthday, but I am very grateful that this book has kind of shaken up my ideas about this a bit as well, and kind of like shaken with me. Grab me by the shoulders and like think about what you're going to be doing the next couple of years. Think really about, do you want to do a doctorate? Do you really want to have another education? Are there not other things more important in life? There's also just some of the parts of the book that really stuck with me, like college students coming pre-offended to class. I will always remember that because it is so true. You have to be so careful with what you say nowadays in cancel culture, and people have become so desensitized to getting their buttons pushed a little bit, and I feel like that's a regression. I think that sure, people can stand up for their rights, and especially people like trans people that get oppressed often, or minorities that get oppressed or treated poorly. Absolutely, take action. Let your voice be heard. But people that are not being oppressed and they actively try to be oppressed, that grinds my gears. And that's dangerous to say even that, right? But I mean, yeah, it has to be said. And Rajeev Balasubramanyam had the balls to say it. I think we should all learn to let go a little bit again. To live, laugh, love, even though the world is so fucked up at sometimes. And finally, the book also raised the question, or it's actually a statement by the professor himself, that a higher education is suffering, alright, but it's worth it because it provides long-lasting happiness later on in life. And that really struck a nerve with me. Is it true? Does it provide happiness? It's something I still have to find out. But more importantly, why would it include suffering in the first place? Why is that necessary? That's not necessary at all, right? Professors are not obliged to give you a task like 3 days before its deadline and describe it in such a vague manner that you have even no idea where to start. It doesn't have to be like that. Universities used to be a place where intellectuals got together. They discussed the state of affairs in the world, and it was a very, very beneficial place for humankind. And now I feel like it just pumps out people to go working. All the individuality is just sucked out of you. You have to become a workforce. When he is congratulated on his old age, he tells us that it was hardly an achievement to reach 70. All I did was try not to die. And I want to have a bit more in my life by then than trying not to die. I want to have accomplished something, created something, become a famous YouTuber. Thank you very much. Like, subscribe, eat my ass. I can't stay serious when I say like, subscribe. There always has to be something crazy behind it. Either way, thanks for watching. Thanks for allowing me to make a bit more of an impact on the world than just surviving. Bye bye.